So picture this. King Charles is sitting there reading this letter. It's super short, just a few lines. But the second he hits that last sentence, boom, his face completely turns to stone. See, Meghan wasn't just asking to come back to the royal family. No, she was basically demanding this super protected official title that hangs right off Catherine's future rank. The king just shoves the letter away, jumps up and goes, "Clear the room, shut the doors." This wasn't going to be some friendly debate. This was the start of a full-blown royal showdown. Hey, real quick before we get into the juice. If you are loving this, smash that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Anyway, Charles is standing there in dead silence as everybody rushes out. Morning at Clarence's house started out totally normal, right? Routine stuff, schedules, charity events, boring paperwork. But this last file, it completely crossed the line. Meghan wanted back in as the Princess of Wales representative. Now, in plain English, that's a title saved only for a super trusted working royal to step in when Catherine is sick or taking time off. Basically, it's stealing the future queen's authority without even asking for a head-up. Charles looks over the list of what she's asking for again. Red carpet events, patronages representing the palace, high-level security, sitting right alongside top royals. She wasn't asking to help out from the sidelines. Guys, she was trying to slide right into Catherine's shoes while Catherine was away taking care of her health. Charles takes off his glasses, sets them down next to the letter, and goes, "Catherine's health struggle is not an opportunity for anyone else." He didn't even yell, but the quiet rage in that room. Unbelievable. Charles knew exactly what was on the line. Catherine spent years grinding, playing by the rules, and building trust. If they gave away her title now, it'd tell the world that her authority doesn't belong to her, and that anyone can just bully the palace into handing it over. And then, get this, the real dirty trick comes out. Here is a highlighted paragraph showing that Meghan's team over in California had already drafted the press releases. They were throwing around buzzwords like reconciliation, duty, and modernizing the monarchy, acting like the palace had already said yes. It was a total trap. Accept it. And Meghan walks back in calling the shots. Turn it down publicly, and the press calls the royals cold and heartless. So Prince William gets an urgent text and comes running in. He finds his dad staring into the fireplace, clutching this letter. Completely silent. William knows right away this isn't just another petty family spat. Charles doesn't even say hi. He just looks at him and goes, "Has Catherine seen this?" And William's reply, total game changer. Catherine had seen it, and she recognized those exact words, because those were the same phrases used years ago in a private fight they thought was buried forever. To get why those few words freaked Catherine out so much, you gotta look at what everybody stood to lose here. For Charles, it was a slap in the face to his power. For William, it was a threat to his wife. For Catherine, it reopened an old wound she'd never talked about in public. And for Meghan, this was her last shot at staying relevant as a royal. I mean, that title wasn't just fancy words. It carried real weight, history, and proximity to the crown. Whoever grabbed it got to control the whole narrative at the monarchy's most vulnerable moment. So Catherine's holding the letter, and William's watching her face just fall. Look, Princess of Wales is for the heir's wife. Period. That temporary backup title is super specific. It lets someone help out without actually taking Catherine's rank or place. Charles and William had never used it because using it, even for a bit, totally blurs the lines of who's actually running the show. Catherine wasn't screaming. She just sounded completely exhausted. She looked at William and asked why every time she's down, people treat her spot like an empty chair waiting to be snatched up. Her taking a step back was meant to protect her health and her kids, not an open invitation for someone else to steal her thunder. William was practically boiling over. He told her straight up, "Meghan's not doing this to honor you. She's trying to hijack your clout and your reputation." The future king knew that once you separate Catherine's job from her actual identity, you can never put the genie back in the bottle. Meanwhile, Charles felt completely stabbed in the back. He'd kept one private line open with Harry, hoping they could work things out eventually. Now he realized Meghan took his kindness for weakness and used it to launch a massive power move. Over in California, Meghan, sitting by her phone, convinced the palace wouldn't dare say no. She thought if they rejected her, it'd make them look cold, bitter, and stubborn. Was it desperate? Totally. But she was dead set on it. Camilla told Charles, "Look, tread carefully here. If we shut her down too hard, it's gonna spark another full-on media war." But William heard that as let's sacrifice Catherine, which just made the drama inside the family 10 times worse. And then, Princess Anne completely flipped the script. When she looked over the briefing, she asked the one question nobody else had thought to ask. Wait, how on earth did Meghan even know the exact internal phrasing for this title? Because look, this wasn't public knowledge. It was known only to top-tier royals and constitutional lawyers who know the Crown's rulebook inside out. And that's when it hit Catherine. She finally remembered where Meghan had picked it up. It went back to a closed-door meeting years ago, one that ended with a warning nobody took seriously at the time. See, the whole palace was in shock over this demand. But the real root of the drama came down to one forgotten moment, the exact moment Meghan realized Catherine held power she could never touch. This title wasn't in any news release, royal biography, or official bulletin. Meghan first overheard it during a private investiture rehearsal at Windsor, when Catherine was being briefed on emergency powers attached to her future role. At the time, most of the family just brushed that afternoon off as some awkward little squabble over royal protocol. But Catherine remembered it totally differently. She remembered Meghan standing near the doorway, dead silent, super attentive, listening to an advisor break down how this protected title could temporarily carry the full authority of the Princess of Wales. Rewind about 18 months, Catherine had walked into that rehearsal thinking it was just routine prep before a massive state ceremony. But this meeting went way deeper. Charles, William, and top advisors were going over emergency contingency plans. Basically, the playbook for keeping royal business running. If a senior royal gets sick or faces a crisis. Catherine's listening as the advisor introduces this title, Princess of Wales Representative. Now the rules on this were airtight. Only the reigning monarch could activate it, and only for a trusted working royal with Catherine's direct green light. It gave you official access, selected patronages, top-tier precedence, and the power to speak in Catherine's name. And right on cue, the door pops open. In walks Meghan, claiming she needed a quick private word with Charles. She was supposed to wait outside, but instead, she just stands there long enough to soak in every single detail. Her face barely moved, but Catherine caught that look. Meghan wasn't confused. She was sitting there calculating what that role could do for her. Then Meghan finally pipes up and asks, "So why can't someone living outside the UK get this designation?" Catherine keeps her cool and replies real smooth. Royal representation requires trust, service, and accountability to the Crown. It was super polite on the surface, but the subtext was crystal clear. Geography isn't the problem here. Sweetie, your behavior is. Meghan wasn't having it. She pushed back, arguing that global reach and public popularity should matter way more than where you live. Catherine could smell the ambition from a mile away, and so could William. The prince literally stepped right between them and shut the conversation down before things went off the rails. Charles watched Meghan walk out, but Catherine was left feeling super uneasy. She told Charles privately, "Look, that question didn't sound hypothetical at all. It sounded rehearsed." She had a gut feeling. Meghan was already testing the waters to see if a future comeback could be built on someone else's authority. And get this. A few hours later, a palace staffer notices that one of the briefing papers from the rehearsal had been moved out of its folder. Nothing was officially reported missing, so they just blamed it on some silly filing mistake. But Catherine never bought that story. She remembered standing there alone after everyone left, feeling like something private had already been swiped. Fast forward to now, Princess Anne pulls out the old security logs. Boom. It shows Meghan had spent 11 unaccounted minutes lingering right outside that constitutional briefing room. With those security logs back out in the open, and Catherine's worst fears confirmed, Charles decides that sending letters isn't gonna cut it anymore. They needed to settle this face to face. No cameras, no PR teams, no advisors whispering in anyone's ear. Just Charles agreeing to a single private video call, so Meghan could lay out her demand in her own words. Meghan pops up on the screen expecting a negotiation. Instead, the king puts her proposal right on the table and hits her with one question. Why did you use Catherine's protected title without her permission? Meghan pauses, takes a breath, and gives an answer that turns Charles's anger into something way more permanent. Now Charles had William standing right beside him, just off camera, as the secure call started from Windsor Castle. The line was totally encrypted. No recording, no outside connections, no aides allowed. The king set the ground rules instantly. This is strictly about constitutional boundaries and the legal rules of the crown. Not personal family drama or forgiveness. Meghan totally refused to accept that distinction. She goes, I am not trying to steal Catherine's identity. I am just offering protection while she's on a reduced schedule. Charles leans in real close to the camera and drops a line that completely shattered any chance of a deal. Protection does not begin by exploiting another woman's absence. At that point, Meghan's frustration just boils over. She starts ranting about her global influence, her charity work, her reach, and how she could modernize an institution that she felt threw her under the bus. She kept whining that the palace was ignoring everything she had to offer. She wasn't even framing it as service anymore. It sounded like a debt she genuinely felt the monarchy owed her. Charles sat there totally still, stone-faced, until Meghan made the mistake of calling Catherine's role unused authority. That was it. The king slammed his hand down on the desk. Boom! Catherine, he said, is a human being, not a vacancy. Her position isn't abandoned property you can just squat on because she needs some recovery time. Then Meghan finally spilled the tea on why she was acting so cocky. Turns out, an insider, a former palace contact, had helped her piece together the exact internal wording and swore to her that the title could be activated without Catherine saying, yes, boom. That confession proved the exact leak princess Anne had been smelling all along. This wasn't some hopeful request for peace. It was a premeditated ambush. Right then, William steps right into the camera frame. He looks her dead in the eye and tells her straight up that her legal advice was complete garbage. No king, sovereign or not, could ever steamroll Catherine's household against her will. You could see Meghan's face tighten up. She realized right then that the family knew she was getting help from an insider who betrayed the palace. Charles lowered his voice, giving her one last way out. Withdraw this thing quietly right now, and we won't throw you under the bus publicly. And what does Meghan do? She doubles down. She refuses. She sits there insisting that the monarchy is eventually gonna need her way more than they're willing to admit. So Charles just shuts the folder, ends the call, click. He tells his private secretary to instantly cut off every single informal channel connected to Meghan's return. Cold right before her screen went pitch black, Meghan drops one last threat. Her team was ready to leak the whole proposal to the press. She genuinely thought public pressure would make the king crumble. But man, did she miscalculate the heavyweight power moves happening behind the scenes. Sure, Charles had the crown, but he wasn't flying solo on this. William held the keys to Catherine's team. Anne was the watchdog for royal standards, and Catherine held the one single sign, off that Meghan could never ever bypass. So late that night, at Windsor, the four of them gather around a table, picking this demand apart line by line. What started out as a fight over one fancy title quickly turned into a final verdict on whether Meghan could ever be trusted with the family name again. Charles called this Private family council with 0 aides or advisors in the room. Just pure, unfiltered honesty before official legal stuff took over. William breaks down the rulebook. Catherine's protected title belongs to her household. Translation: you can't touch it without green lights from the king, the heir, and the princess herself. Catherine just sat there, hands folded, watching them debate power, precedent, and the fallout. When Charles finally turns to her and asks, "What do you want to do?" Catherine doesn't even hesitate. She says her title is not going to be a stepping stone for someone who repeatedly threw her under the bus, only to crawl back when royal power becomes convenient again. Charles felt the crushing weight of Harry behind every word. He knew a permanent hell no might destroy his absolute last chance at ever fixing things with his youngest son. Catherine saw that pain all over his face. She gently looks at him and goes, "You have to make this call as king, not just as a dad. Showing mercy to one kid can't come at the cost of another family member's dignity." Then William just snapped. He argued that every single compromise they ever made just became the springboard for the next demand. Anne backed him up 100%. She reminded Charles that royal service is built on discipline and accountability, not PR campaigns or guilt trips. You don't get to rage, quit the system, attack its borders, and then demand a corner office inside it. Then Anne pulls out the smoking gun, a documented security report. Private investigators had traced that leaked phrasing straight back to a retired communications consultant who used to work for both households. This person had kept confidential briefing notes way after leaving palace service. But get this, it gets worse. Message logs showed recent chats between that consultant and someone on Meghan's team. The forbidden title wasn't stumbled upon by accident. It was deliberately weaponized. Charles walks across the room, opens a cabinet full of old family letters, and pulls out a photo of Harry and Meghan. He studies it for a few heavy seconds, then flips it face down on the desk. Catherine officially says no. William backs her up. Anne votes for a permanent ban, and the king signs the official order. This title is 100% non-transferable. Game over. And right on cue, a palace PR officer walks in with total bomb news. Meghan's proposal had already been leaked to an American television network. The family had just made their call behind closed doors. But now, the leak guaranteed the whole drama was about to play out on the world stage. Before dawn in London, news hits the airwaves. This broadcaster starts painting Meghan's plan as this super generous offer to help Catherine out during a tough time, totally glossing over the massive power move hidden in that forbidden title. Within 5 minutes, television commentators are everywhere, swooning over it, calling it a beautiful act of peace. But inside the palace, nobody was buying that. Generosity as Charles saw pure manipulation. William saw a low blow aimed straight at his wife. And over in California, Harry had just found out this whole request was sent without him even knowing. Charles spotted the danger right off the bat. The leaked press story claimed Meghan was just selflessly offering to take on temporary duties, but conveniently left out all the fine print: the official ranking, security perks, title access, and taking over Catherine's patronages. See, ranking determines who stands where and who gets top billing at major events. Without those details, Meghan looks like an angel. With them, it's a straight-up power grab. So the palace was stuck in a brutal catch -22. Keep quiet, and Meghan's spin becomes the official story. Clap back with details to defend Catherine, and they'd have to expose private info about her health and recovery. William was like, no way in hell is my wife's personal battle becoming ammo for another public war. Meanwhile, Catherine's watching the television coverage on mute. She's keeping it together until this one news anchor calls her unable to fulfill her role. That hit hard. She snapped the television off and fought back tears. That phrase didn't just question her strength. It turned her painful recovery into an excuse to replace her. Charles went nuclear. He ordered that restricted title wiped from every single emergency contingency plan. Boom. No outsider was ever going to use it as a backdoor into the monarchy again. Over in California, Harry reads the full document and totally loses it on Meghan. He shoves his chair back shouting, demanding to know why his name was slapped onto a plan he never approved. She doubles down saying, "Waiting around got us nowhere." Harry fires back that she just turned his honest hope for family peace into a dirty campaign for power. Then Meghan finally admits the truth, that retired palace consultant promised her Charles would fold the second the story hit the press. Right then, Harry realizes the leak was never an accident. It was the blackmail weapon the whole time. And William gets hit with even darker proof, a leaked media plan with pre-written headlines, interview angles, and smear tactics, specifically designed to spin Catherine as the cold, bitter woman blocking another woman's good deeds. The prince saw cold calculation where the public saw sweet compassion. Charles grabs his pen and signs the official order, 0 negotiations. No duties, no patronages, no palace access, no events, and 0 temporary roles for Meghan. Done. But right before the formal announcement goes out, Catherine asks for a private chat with the king. She didn't want this final hammer to fall out of pure revenge. Look, Catherine had every right to demand blood, but in that quiet room, she chose to speak not as the future queen, but as a woman who knew what permanent exile feels like. She walks into Charles's sitting room completely alone. No William, no aides, no lawyers. Charles expected her to demand the absolute maximum punishment. Instead, she asks him to separate Meghan's actions from Harry's future. Now, she didn't soften her. Hell no. Nor did she forgive Meghan for going after her title. But she got that this one decree could destroy the very last personal bridge between a dad and his son. She wanted to talk to Charles alone, so he could hear her without different royal offices whispering in his ear. This formal order was it. Once signed, it carries the full authority of the crown. No takebacks. Catherine laid her law down. Meghan can never use that title, speak for her office, take her patronages, or sneak back through some temporary help loophole. It crossed a line way too personal to ignore and way too dangerous to repeat. Charles came clean. Admitting his rage partly came from guilt. He felt like his push to stay approachable made it seem like every royal boundary was up for bargain. He just wanted to keep talking to his son, but his patience got used as proof that bullying the palace works. Catherine didn't sugarcoat his mistake. She told him straight up, compassion without boundaries is just permission. But then she warned him, punishing Harry for a plot he didn't even understand is just doing the same injustice in reverse. Meghan made the bed. Harry shouldn't lose his dad over it. Then Charles asks the one question he'd been avoiding the whole time. Could you ever even sit in the same room as Meghan again? Catherine pauses. She says, basic politeness might be possible one day, but trust, working together as royals, that's dead and buried. The future queen could forgive the pain without throwing away her brains. She could stay human without pretending the betrayal never happened. So the king tweaked the decree. Meghan's royal return was slammed shut forever, but he left a tiny private back door open just for Harry to call his dad as a son, completely off royal business. Then Catherine makes one last major ask. Do not leak my private health details to fix the PR story. Even though, let's be real, putting those medical facts out there would have made Meghan look 10 times more ruthless. Catherine refused to play dirty. Charles took the original proposal, ripped off the page with Catherine's protected title, and threw it right into the fireplace. Watched it burn to ashes. But he kept the rest of the pages locked up tight as hard evidence. Before she walked out, the king looked at her and genuinely thanked her. Not just for saving the crown, but for saving that tiny slice of his heart that still hoped to talk to his son again. By sunrise. Boom. Catherine's title was officially locked down, and Meghan's royal comeback was dead in the water. But the public still hadn't heard the official words that would define this whole war. When Buckingham Palace finally dropped the statement, it was super cold, super clean. 0 insults, 0 medical details. Just straight to the point. Catherine's office cannot be transferred, borrowed, represented, or used as a backdoor into royal service without her personal sign. Off the proposal is permanently rejected. And then, one single newspaper headline completely flipped the entire public mood, turning what looked like a nice offer to help into a massive battle over identity, power, and trust. The palace confirmed that nobody living outside the working royal core could ever hold, share, or borrow any authority tied to the Princess of Wales period. And just like that, every single rumor about deals over patronages, security, or a royal return was killed on the spot. Within hours, public opinion did a total 180. A major London paper slapped Catherine right on the front page with 5 words that cleared up all the noise. Her title is not an empty chair. That headline instantly changed the conversation from pity to consent. Suddenly, Meghan's plan didn't look like sweet assistance anymore. It looked like a straight-up attempt to hijack another woman's throne. Outside Kensington Palace, crowds started gathering. One woman left a bouquet of white flowers with a handwritten card that said, "Service cannot be borrowed." You can't fake that kind of authentic public reaction with a PR campaign. On the evening news, a veteran royal commentator totally nailed it. He goes, "Look, the debate here isn't whether Meghan deserves forgiveness. It's whether forgiveness means handing back power that doesn't belong to her anymore." Meghan's fans tried to clap back, whining that the palace was shutting down good initiative and slamming the door on peace. But everyone else was like, "Are you kidding?" She put Catherine under immense pressure while she was recovering and protecting her family. The next morning, Catherine sees the newspaper over breakfast with William. She looks at the front page, takes a breath, and just folds it closed. She didn't want their kids seeing her identity treated like public property. William got it instantly. Even positive media attention can feel like a total violation. And then the final blow landed. American media got their hands on the full, unedited proposal. All those secret sections demanding high-level precedence, armed security, title access, and taking over patronages completely obliterated the PR story about simple charity work. Over in Montecito, Meghan watched the revised news reports in dead silence. Once her team confirmed that 0 further calls or negotiations were coming from London, she just turned off her phone. The headlines would eventually fade, but this final judgment went way beyond a single piece of paper, leaving Charles, Catherine, William, Harry, and Meghan to live with the fallout of what could never be undone. At the end of the day, Meghan's play failed because she completely misunderstood where royal power actually comes from. Catherine's rank doesn't exist just because a fancy title is written next to her name. It was forged through years of grinding, restraint, loyalty, and pure trust. Charles's rage wasn't just about official protocol either. It came from watching a woman's vulnerability get treated as an opening and seeing a fragile family bond turned into political leverage. So the final verdict, it was personal, constitutional, and absolute. Charles didn't even hesitate. He signed that permanent order right then and there. Meghan is officially banned from ever using Catherine's restricted title, or anything even hinting that she represents Catherine, the Wales household, or the working monarchy. And just to be clear, the Wales household means the whole official team backing William and Catherine. That boundary now has the full, unyielding weight of the crown behind it. The palace shut down every single back door into the institution. Temporary gigs, royal patronages, ceremonial events, security perks, advisory roles, all of it wiped off the table. Meghan's not coming back through charity work, public pressure, or borrowing another woman's title. Period. Charles had to swallow the bitterest pill of all. Keeping a personal relationship with Harry couldn't mean breaking royal rules over and over again. The king left one quiet, private line open for his younger son. But as far as Meghan's status goes, the door isn't just closed, it's locked and bolted. Catherine refused to celebrate, though. Sure, she felt this huge wave of relief that her position was safe, but deep down, she was still genuinely sad. She never wanted another family blow-up to end in permanent exile, but she got it. Compassion shouldn't mean erasing yourself. Forgiving someone doesn't mean handing over the identity you spent years grinding to build. For William, this was way bigger than just a husband standing up for his wife. The prince got that protecting Catherine's rank was part of prepping to defend the monarchy they're gonna run together one day. His loyalty went from personal to constitutional real quick. Harry had to face a brutal reality check. His dream of rolling back into official royal life with Meghan. Totally dead. Any future peace with his family would have to happen purely as a son and a brother. Not through public bargaining, titles, duties, or security setups. And Meghan had to swallow a truth that all her global clout couldn't change. Winning outside the monarchy doesn't buy you power inside it. That forbidden title offered zero shortcuts, because the trust you need to hold it can never be demanded. A bit later, Charles meets up with Catherine and William in the exact same room where he first opened that letter. The king drops the signed order into a locked cabinet, turns the key, and tells them, "It's over. The matter is finished." In the end, Meghan's play didn't weaken Catherine. It basically cemented her place as the star of the show. Charles's rage turned into a firm boundary. William's loyalty became an ironclad promise. And Catherine came out of this as the absolute rock of the monarchy's future. The door Meghan tried to force open is sealed shut forever, and the crown's message couldn't be louder or clearer. Catherine's name, her authority, and her future will never ever be treated as someone else's golden opportunity. All right, guys, that's the whole wild story. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.